Well, I didn't get a day off, but I'm self-employed. Chris, were you expecting that response?
I don't think the response is anything like what I might have expected. I remember in 1977 when the Queen's Silver Jubilee took place, there were street parties across London. I didn't see any street parties in London apart from those organised by people like Samantha Cameron in Downing Street or paid for by Westminster Council at a time when they're making cuts. There was no popular enthusiasm where I was in central living in the inner city London, no street parties. And in fact, there's a fair amount of cynicism about the amount of money spent, up to £100 million on this wedding, public money, at a time when, for instance, our children's centres locally are being cut. We're seeing cuts in the National Health Service. People are questioning it. And I think people feel that actually the wedding was delivered precisely as an attempt to take people's minds off the austerity, the cuts, which have been there to try and create a feel-good factor. But it didn't. It didn't create anything like the effect of 1981 when Charles and Diana wed. And that's because the popularity of the monarchy has been waning as a result of the royal family turning themselves into celebrities. That has an effect of boosting interest in them, but it also has a downside that it turns the attention on the less seamy side of their lives, the divorces, the problems of Prince Andrew, etc. People know about this. You know, if this is the top family in Britain, it's a fairly rotten family, in my opinion, with a fairly seedy record. So I think people are quite cynical about it. And certainly in London, there was no huge street party atmosphere in Brixton, in Notting Hill, Ladbroke Grove, any of those places where ordinary people live.
How would you respond to that, Ben?
Well, I'd say 2 points. I think, first of all, we are a slightly different country than we were in 1981. I think things have changed slightly. I think, you know, the 24-hour media, the internet means that people do their own thing. But the fact is that this is a wedding that had overwhelming interest in this country and indeed around the world. You know, we're going through severely difficult economic times. It is something that brought the country together. It's a unifying force for the United Kingdom. And I'd like to make 2 points to my two co-debaters. Number one, you either believe in democracy or you don't. If you believe in democracy, you believe in the right of the overwhelming majority of British people to keep the system of government and parliament and monarchical system that we have. So you
and
either
that
believe
includes
in that.
In the right to free speech.
Of course, it believes in the right, but we do have the right to free speech.
Well,
but I don't understand. You're obviously very angry about this. I'm not an angry person. I'm a laid-back person. Why? If you disagree with the monarchy, fine, you're totally entitled to your opinion, you're entitled to your opinion. Why you would want to go and demonstrate and cause a ruckus and ruin it?
Did you want to cause a ruckus?
For peace? Well, of course you're causing a ruckus. You wanted to ruin it for peace-loving people who were going to London to share in a day of national celebration.
One woman was arrested for wearing a costume. She wasn't shouting.
But why
she was
would
picked
you
up.
do that?
Why not?
I disagree with your political views and what you stand for. I don't go outside.
So this is internment without trial.
Demonstrate
internment without trial.
Internment without trial has saved millions of lives.
Let's step outside the paradigm that the royal family is the be-all and end-all and that we need to respect their wedding. No, but hold on a second. You say I was going to go cause a ruckus. Yes. I was going to use a megaphone, which Justice Holland in the High Court said is legal to use on public property at Soho Square and move to Trafalgar Square outside the procession route. Do you feel, Ben, it was right for the policemen wearing the crown on their helmets to come to my door and kidnap me for 24 hours?
I wouldn't use the word kidnap. I would make the point to you, why are you disturbing a national day of celebration? You could demonstrate on any other day. Two young people, regardless of whether they're royal or not, have got married. This is something to celebrate.
Is there something different about a royal wedding than any other political event that I could protest at?
Of course it is.
Oh, there is. Please explain.
Because the royal family are not political, and that's the major point.
They're not political.
Of course they're not political. They're above politics.
But the Queen
they're above the law.
The Queen is head of the armed forces, MI6, MI5, the police service is head of much.
Crown Prosecution Service.
God, because
and the army in Afghanistan is fighting a war on behalf of the Queen and country.
And under your system, we would politicise all of that.
Is the British Army not politicised?
No, it's not politicised.
It's not politicized.
It serves the crown. And
is MI6 not politicized?
The government might send the army into battle. They are above politics.
This week we've seen the police found guilty of the killing of a man at a G8 protest in London. Are they politicised or not? They clearly treated him as an enemy within. We saw the police used in that way in the miners' strike. We've seen the police used consistently in a political way.
What both communists and anarchists fail to answer again and again, Yvonne,
is communists and anarchists.
If communists and anarchists is if you got rid of this political system, if we got rid of the monarchy, what would you replace it with?
Well, I think a president would be much cheaper, but actually I don't think you even need a head of state. I think you could just do with an elected assembly. I don't want a House of Lords. I don't want these things. I would like to get rid of them.
Happy for a head of state to be politicised.
I would like to have no.
You would be happy with that.
You would be happy with that. The people should rule, not a head of state.
You're living in cloud
democracy is about the people ruling. That's what it means in Greek. People's rule.
I've done graphics. Can you give me one example of a country around the world that has that system of government?
There's lots
one example.
Lots of places in the Republic. Well, go to Ireland. The actual president's position is very nominal and is very modest. It doesn't have millions of pounds spent in it. I don't think you need to have that system.
Ireland got any clout on the world stage? Of course it doesn't.
Let me bring Charlie in on this.
Charlie, we've got enormous
it falls behind America.
We're on the UN Security Council.
Time out. Charlie, what is the alternative to the royal family?
The alternative to the royal family, as I am a committed anarchist, political, philosophical, is the absolute and gradual and peaceful takedown of this British civilization, which is sick, it's insane, it's a kind of unequal social class system of brutality. The British Empire was built on slavery and surpluses and bringing in resources from little kind of innocent countries to turn the living into the dead. I am an anarcho-primitivist. I would like to see everyone return to a kind of more stable living on the land base in harmony with nature. I am not a socialist.
Chairman Mao.
Chairman Mao, he was a mass murderer of an industrial civilization, just like the British government.
Well, let's move away from Chairman Mao and head for the Agenda's electronic post room, where Mohammed Walji selects the best Facebook responses to today's topic.
Thanks, Yvonne. Well, it's quite clear Agenda viewers are not flag-waving supporters of royal families wherever they are. Charlie Johnson from Sweden says, "There's no point to them whatsoever. Better with a republic, it's more justice." Zubair Aziz from Pakistan adds, "Europe's royal culture is the outcome of a capitalistic ideology, but what happened to Arabian kings? Kingship is always and has always been royal." Shumaila Khalid from Pakistan says, "Maybe some people feel the need to keep hold of old traditions on the basis of commercialism. The palace does attract millions of tourists." Atiya Ashraf says, "If anything, royal families like the government are to blame for the segregation that exists in society today, i.e. rich and poor. Where's the logic in knighting someone for their efforts? Normal people strive every day to make a change, yet they don't get the recognition because of the flawed system used within these countries." But Londoner Claire Core says, "I would rather have one than not have one, because I am not a sour, envious, class-hating socialist bigot who hates and envies anyone richer than they are. Royals are a reminder that even the royal and rich are unhappy and often mess up their lives too." Margaret Green responds, "I neither hate nor envy anyone. However, I refuse to be ruled by people who have no idea whatsoever of the real world and humanity itself." Qasim Ali from London gets the final word and says, "They own the land. It's as simple as. Whether through peace or violence, they are glorified landowners. Queen Liz inherited the land from her father, who earned it from his father, who earned it from his father, etc., etc. A person laid claim to the land and set his or her rules and employed people to uphold his or her rule. It's not very complicated, just a glorified landlord." Well, that's all we have time for. Back to you in the studios, Yvonne.
Thanks, Mohammed. Well, we've just got a few minutes left, in which time we'll get our guests' concluding remarks, each one uninterrupted, please. Starting with you first, Chris. You know, who did pay for the royal wedding? Was it value for money? What is the future of the monarchy?
We paid for the royal wedding. We paid the bulk of it. At a time when expenditure has been cut back in health, education, nursery care and so on, we paid for it, and we didn't even get an invite to it. People who did get an invite were the royal families of Saudi Arabia and various other regimes. Kate Middleton is projected as a commoner. She's only a commoner in the sense that she's not a member of the royal family. She is now. She was a millionaire. She went to Marlborough School, a very posh school where Samantha Cameron, the Prime Minister's wife, went. She was at St Andrews University, which in Scotland is well known, has been a place where the hunting, shooting, fishing brigade from England hang out without too much cleverness. And she's only had a job in a shop for a very brief period of her life and decided to take more time off to be on her own. She's known nothing of the ordinary life of people in this country, and Prince William doesn't either. I think there's the popularity of the royal family is falling. It has been falling consistently over the years, and I think there's a question mark over it. We don't need the royals to run this country. They came through conquest. They came through the record of the empire, which has been alluded to. I would like to see a real democracy without a House of Lords, without a nobility, without a royal family. People rule.
Right, thank you for that. Benjamin?
Yvonne, I realise I'm something in the minority today in the studio with my two friends, but in the country I'm in the overwhelming majority. The fact remains that the royal family has stood as a bulwark for the protection of liberty in this country. King John signed the Magna Carta in 1217. Ever since then, our monarchy has stood as a defender of those particular liberties. We tried a republic in this country between 1649 and 1660. It was a disaster. We had a dictator take over and bring in miserable puritanical rule that banned religion, banned Christmas, banned any form of national celebration. This is not what Great Britain is about. What makes Great Britain great, known around the world, respected around the world, is its tolerance, is its liberty, is its love of its old institutions, its crown, its church, its aristocracy. It's loved in the Middle East for that reason. The Arabs relate to us. We do have an order and a hierarchy in this country, but you tell me a successful country around the world that doesn't. No country has been governed without an elite. I'd rather have an elite that allows people to enter it. You know, John Major became Prime Minister in this country as a working class boy from Brixton. In the United States of America, you have to be a millionaire to become president. The same in France. Sarkozy is obviously a millionaire. Our royal family is overwhelmingly popular. People love it in this country. No mainstream party supports a republic. I don't support a republic. It binds the Commonwealth together, and I do not understand the envy and misery of those that get hung up over the price of a minor party if it puts a smile on the face of the nation.
Let's move to Charlie.
Well, you mentioned cuts, Yvonne. I think the French in the 1770s knew exactly where they should place certain cuts to bring about a republic and a more equal society. I'd like to thank Ben for coming on here and spreading his view. Obviously, he's in the minority in this panel. I think the Arab Spring revolutions will spread to Great Britain. The establishment is terrified that the masses, us, are starting to wake up politically, philosophically, and understand that there is no one who has any more authority over you than your connection to yourself, really. Like, whether you believe in God or Allah, or whether you're an atheist, you are the be-all and end-all. And the revolutions will spread. This is why the conservative Lib Dem coalition scumbag government is starting to crack down on protesters. Let's look at Alfie Meadows.
Why do you use words like scumbag?
No, let him
Alfie Meadows, he got charged with violent disorder after being truncheoned over the head and given a brain hemorrhage with emergency brain surgery. I guess the police will say that his crime was head-butting a police truncheon. So as we see the state crack down on people like myself and take away my freedom for 24 hours, it will radicalize the youth, and we will see the people eventually overthrow the walls.
Well, on that note, an interesting idea, the Arab Spring coming to Britain. That just remains for me to say a very big thank you to all of you today, and we'll see you all soon on the next agenda.